We're continuing in דיני שותפים, סימן קע"ו סעיף י"א, which is part of a series of Sa'ifim, Yud Beis, Yud Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Daled, which discuss changes that somebody does in the shutfus. When does it work, when does it not work? Obviously, like I said, these halachas, the reason why we're focusing on them is because these are the things that come up in Dintaitis. There's never Dintaitis when things go well, when money comes in. The Dintaitis start when there's a fight. And the fight usually starts when there's no money or when there's losses. And then suddenly everybody remembers, I told you not to do so, I told you yes to do so, you broke the rules, you didn't break the rules, the shutfus does go, it doesn't go. So these Sa'ifim are crucial for dealing with these kinds of cases. And the discussion is, when is the loss on the person who did the change and when isn't? The Mechaber brings a couple of examples and the Rama brings two other dinim. I'm going to go through them. There's a lot of details, that's why I'm starting to share early. It'll be a little bit longer than usual, but it looks like everybody is well rested, so we could discuss it. First one is, they made a shutfus that they're going to buy a specific schayra, specific merchandise, and that is what they were supposed to do. And one shutuf was supposed to be the one going and purchasing it, and he went and he purchased something else. The Mechaber says if there's a loss due to this purchase, the loss is only in the person who purchased it, and if there's a gain, the gain is split by both. The Shach over here adds, and Sifkat Mechav Daled, and this is something which I mentioned in the previous shir because it was connected to the previous shir about Shina, but it's really on this Sa'if, that, and he brings it from Shalas Tshuvas Divrei Rivais Siman Kuf Lamed, so it seems like that if the other shutef was maskim in writing afterwards, then he has to absorb half of the losses. Pischei Tshuva later on, not on this Seif, but later on, B'chsav la'achar ma'aseh? No, we know already from the whole discussion from the Smeh that shtika is not kaidah and you have to have askama. The Shach points out that askama b'chsav is considered askama. We'll soon see that not everybody says, even b'dibur, totally what you say, the Sagdela says. Yeah, so he's just pointing out that the Divrei tells you that askama b'chsav also works even la'achar afterwards. Yeah. Just pointing out, the Shach brings it, you should just know that Askama B'chsav is also Askama. Pischei Tshuva later on, Sifkat Yudches brings from Shalas Tshuvas Me'il Tzedakah, which is usually not quoted so much in Choshen Mishpat. Most of you know it from Hilchas Nida, but there is Me'il Tzedakah is not only in Hilchas Nida, Siman Tesvav, that over there the Pischei Tshuva is not discussing this case, the Me'il Tzedakah, but in B'derech Agav he discusses something which is relevant to this case, and that's why we're quoting it here. And over there he says, if he discusses a certain attitude in this shutfus, the second shutuf is agreeing to accept the profits, right? That's, he says, I'm agreeing, he's not agreeing to accept the loss, he's agreeing to accept the profits. If he's agreeing to accept the profits, and he says that he's agreeing to accept the profits, he says you still potter from absorbing half of the losses, as long as he did not agree specifically to purchase this specific schayra. However, the Me'il Tzedakah adds that if the first shutef brought back the schayra and gave it to the other guy, and the other guy made a kinyan of sorts on the schayra, so he is no longer just a shutef b'dibur or in theory, but he actually has half of the schayra in his warehouse, then a hefsid came as a result of it, then he's responsible for, he also absorbs the losses. That means, in other words, that means that it came after, not only came after he agreed, he adds that it came after he received the schayra, which is an interesting Me'il Tzedakah. It's not enough to just agree to the concept, seems like you also have to have a kinyan on the schayra. And then the loss is also on him.
I think there was losses before and...
That's what he discusses, because if the loss was already before, and only it was Nisgala Lemafreya after he accepted the Schayra that is a loss, then he does not absorb half of the losses. Now, there is a Shas Tshuva Tzemach Tzedek which is in your white book. It's a short Tshuva, and it seems like it implies the same as a Me'il Tzedakah, and that is over there, the story was like that. Siman Choshen Mishpat, Siman Samach Gimel of the Tzemach Tzedek. There was, let's call him Reuven and Shimon. Reuven asked Shimon to go bring him 150 pounds of salt. And it's from either from Kerch or from Kremenchug, whichever. Both, one was a port city, one was a place where they had the salt. I don't know which one specifically is, but I asked different people, and different people translated differently. So I'm just giving you both options, and not really relevant to the din, but it's just interesting. And the friend was a salt importer. And he sent 2 ships of salt. One had 800 pounds and one had 1,000 pounds. He asked him for 150. Reuven asked Shimon for 150. Shimon was delivering 2 ships full of salt. One had 1,000 pounds and one had 800 pounds. And the 800-pound ship was supposed to come first. It went out earlier, and the 1,000-pound ship was supposed to come later. And the Shimon tells Reuven, you'll get your 150 from the second ship, from the later ship. Even though Shimon now has to wait a little bit longer for his salt, he was still masking because he felt, the guy's doing me a favor, I'll go for it. And then what happened? The first ship burnt and got lost. Now Shimon comes and says, hey, you're 150, we're in the first ship, not in the second ship. I don't want to give you the 150 from the ship of 1,000, which is still remaining. The one who asked the Tzemach Tzedek this question wanted to say that because Shimon was the one who offered that it should come from the 1,000 and Reuven agreed to it, you don't need a kinyan. And it says, if already the 150 of Reuven are sitting in Shimon's ship of 1,000. And Tzemach Tzedek says, no. He paskins the same, but he says something different. He says, Ba'atzem, you do need a kinyan to be able to accept it. Elamai, you don't really need das. You might not need das makna. So what happens over here? How did the kinyan happen? He says, because of the hanoi that each one had. The one who brought the salt, Kalov Shaladam Kainim Loi, so his ship of 800, he was kind of that, so he lost. What he lost over there. And the other one was Zoiche in the ship of 1,000 because each one had a hanoe from having it in the ship of 1,000. Shimon, who brought the salt, wanted it to be from the ship of 1,000 because it comes later. Reuven agreed that it should come from the ship of 1,000 because he was getting a favor out of the other person. So therefore, each one made a kinyan by his hanoe. The hanoe that the person had, he got a kinyan of it. And therefore, he is already kind of the 150 that are sitting in the ship of 1,000. And therefore, that became already somewhat of a das makna and somewhat of a kinyan. And he got it. So you could be medayik from here, even though it's not relevant directly to this case, that an actual kinyan is needed. There has to be a das makna to be able to become responsible either for gain or for at least for losses. And it's not enough just a haskama, and therefore the kinyan, and therefore it fits with what the Me'il Tzedakah mentions.
Why would you assume that it would be the first vote or the second vote? Let's say they actually didn't say anything.
They didn't say anything.
Why
right?
That it's fair in the second vote? Why would he assume it's the first vote or the second vote?
He doesn't assume anything. If there's no kinyan done and there's no discussion done which one it is, then you could say you lost. There'll be a discussion. Did you lose or did you not lose? You want to get the 150 out of him, go prove it. Over here, Chiddush is that we have a kinyan, and therefore because of the hanoah that each one had. Comes out from it an interesting question, that if there was no hanoah, if there was no kinyan, according to Mil Tzedakah, you don't absorb the losses. But if there was a hanoah but there was no kinyan, could be according to Tzemach Tzedek, the hanoah in itself becomes a kinyan, and therefore, even if you didn't do a kinyan, even according to Mil Tzedakah, you would still be absorbing the losses if you agreed to accept it. Let's move on. The Erech Shai in Sifkot Yud Ches goes into a discussion what happens if the second person, let's go back to the Schaira discussion, the second person helped him with selling this product. He tells him, go buy me Sa'irim, Chitim. So go buy Chitim. And he went and he bought Sa'irim. But the second person, the second Shutef comes and helps him sell the Sa'irim. Is that enough of a Messiah to show that he is maskim to what happens? He was never said he's maskim. You can't say Shsika Kaido like the Smeh. The question is that action enough to show that he's maskim? And he brings from the Shas HaTshuvas Ma'arach Or Zerua, Siman Reish Mem Gimel, that maybe you could, that it's not a raya. Just like by someone who's by Hezek Re'iyah, by Hezek Shchenim, we learned it, 8 months ago, that Messiah and certain ones, it's not considered a raya that he was maskim. That's a Ma'arach Or Zerua. The second shutuf was Messiah. No. The one who bought it, the one who didn't buy it, didn't agree to it, is Messiah him to sell it. He told him, go buy chitim. Then he came. Even Messiah, if it's for a hezek, lav dafka, it's considered a siyua. The Malach Zerua says, we could see from in certain cases in hezek shchenim that it's not so.
Yeah, but there's a difference from masking from Meiser.
So you'll soon see. So he says, he says that you could be medayik from the Darkei Moshe and Sifkot Ches that Messiah and the Hefsid came after the Siyua, after the help, then he also absorbs parts of the losses. And the Erech Shai says that from the Mil Tzedakah, it's mashma, that taking a part in the profits is not a raya, therefore over here it should also not be a raya. Why? And he says, he's medayik, he says, based on the Mil Tzedakah, that agreeing to take part of the profits is not enough of a haskama to agree to take part of the losses. Same thing should be here. The being Messiah, yes, he helped him sell it. But the reason is because he wanted to get his keren out of it. Not because he was maskim to the actual act of purchasing the schayra. Elamai, he knew that this guy, all the money that he put into shutfus went into this deal. He knows that it's against him. He never agreed to it. Elamai says, at least I'll recover what I put in. But not that he should be responsible for the losses. And that seems like that's what the Erech Shai paskins l'maisa. Now, how much, Yeah. Now, how much losses do you have to pay? We discussed it in the previous year. There's a discussion if you pay losses of profit, potential profit that's lost, or just the hefsid of the keren. And the Pamoin is over here, Sifkot Yutes. It's pretty much l'shita say that you only pay the keren. He brings it from he brings the machlekes from the marikash and the maritat. Do you pay just the loss that he lost from the keren? That means only the half of the keren, or also potential losses. And his achroy of the Pamoin Azov is that you only pay half of the keren and not half of the potential losses. And he says in my Shalos HaTshuvas, I explained that even the Mechaber holds up. I couldn't find his Tshuvas, so therefore I can't tell you what his explanation is. I'm just telling you what he paskins. Now, what happens if he did buy what he was supposed to buy? He was told to buy chitim and he bought chitim. But he did not do due diligence. That means he bought a whole truck of wheat, but he didn't check the quality of the wheat. So yes, the wheat could have been sold and it was good. He was told, go buy a truckload of wheat, and he went and he bought a truckload of wheat. You come back and the wheat is gehakt auf tzaris, has bugs, has mice, has whatever. If it's for matzahs, it got wet, you don't know what exactly happened with it. You think it's wet, some nefuchas, whatever it is, some of the grains are this, and he says, I'm not, you caused the hafsid. Half of the wheat is not, doesn't help us anything. The Knesset Agdela in Agoy Satur Ois Tzadik Daled says that he's a mazik b'yadayim. And therefore, if there's a hafsid, the hafsid is fully his. The Knesset Agdela Hagoy Satur Ois Tzadik Daled. That becomes a mazik b'yadayim if he didn't check the quality of the product that he was supposed to purchase for the shutfas. It's not enough that you followed instructions. You also have to do your proper work as a shutaf to care for it. Soon we're going to see it later. We're going to discuss Aruch HaShulchan, which gives a general understanding of how shutfim are supposed to treat each other. The Mishpat Shalom over here brings from the same Shalas of Tshuvas Divrei Rivois that the Shach mentions, that we mentioned before, Siman Kuf Lamed Daled, about another scenario of purchasing something that you weren't supposed to purchase. They made a shutfus and they agreed that the shutfus has to purchase this and this product. They made an additional Tanai. And if one of the shutfim that's supposed to purchase this product goes and purchases something else, he keeps it, it's all his, losses, everything is on his head. They didn't discuss losses, profits, but they said if somebody purchases, it's on his headache. Now what happened? The shutef went, supposed to purchase that product, and he purchased a different product. But he sent a letter where he writes that, hey shutfim, today's day will be an email, just know, exciting news, I just purchased this and this product for this and this price. And they say, okay, perfect, we want a part of it. Even though, according to the Tanaim, it wasn't supposed to be. Comes back to town with all the schayra, the one that purchased it, I guess the price went up tremendously, and he says, hey, we have a deal that if I purchase something that's not according to the contract, not according to our agreement, I get to keep it. I don't want to give you parts of it. You agree to it. I don't want to give you parts of it. The shutfim say, that's not so. What was our heskim? Our heskim was only to prevent a nezek to the shutfas, to allow us the latitude to determine whether we want to be part of a deal or not. Not that we're cut ourselves out of every deal, because then there's no shutfas. Each person will go and do whatever he wants. He'll find a good deal and he'll tell the shutfim, I don't want to be a shutf with you. That's not the point. The point was that every deal we want to have the option of determining if we're going to do it or not. And if you went and violated the rules, then if we don't want it, you get to hold the bag. But if it's beneficial, we want to keep it. And the Divrei Rivois paskins that the shutfim are right because they wrote that in the letter that they want the schayra, and as a response to his letter that he offered the schayra. That's what the Mishpat Shalom brings from Divrei Rivois. It seems to imply that if there was no letter, then their taina that we made a deal where we could only get benefit and no loss, lav davke is accepted. Just a side thing. Now what happens if there was two shutfim and one gave the money and one was supposed to do the work or whatever, and he was supposed to go buy a schayra, and that person went and he took part of the money that he was supposed to go buy a schayra and bought himself a house. He was supposed to buy a certain product, expensive product, and he had $2 million in the bank. $1 million he spent to buy the schayra, and $1 million he bought himself a house. Can the shutfus claim that? Can the other shutf claim, I want to have half of the house that you purchased? So the Mata Shimon in Agoyes Beis Yosef Ois Kuf Beis brings one opinion that the second shutf has no chelik in the house. Why? This is he brings it to the Masas Moshe. The Masas Moshe starts by saying that The second shutef has no right in the house. Why? Because buying houses is not usually something to do with shutfus, at least I guess in those days. But the Masas Moshe himself has a maskana that the revach goes, then in this case, no, the revach of the houses will go l'emtza. The Masas Moshe goes both, starts maybe the svara like this, and then paskins faket. Then he brings the people which paskin clearly one way or the other. He brings from the Sefer Zekan Ara in that the pashtus without any argument that the second shutef has no right to it. And he brings from the Sefer Tshuvas Yochin Abaya that the second right b'pashtus is the second, that this is considered a shinui, and therefore the revach goes la'emtza, and the hefsed is only to him.
Why would this be worse?
So then it becomes, no, you have three shittas over here.
No, I said, why should it be worse than halacha when the person goes one should buy nevedas? You told me the reason is because no one will buy a house for shittas. No one will buy nevedas is so. Nevertheless, you say this chayat lemza.
Yeah, but the question is if this is considered a shinui, if this shutfus is not, that it's not, to become a shutf in the velas utrefas, two goyim do become shutfim in selling the velas utrefas. But there's a svare that people don't become shutfim in houses. Today it doesn't apply. Today, a lot of houses are b'shutfis, buildings are b'shutfis. In those days, that's what it seems like in those countries. And the Mata Shimon goes and discusses the differences between the Masas Moshe and the Yochin Ubayas, whether, because it seems like from the Masas Moshe that it becomes part of the shutfis, he gets part of the Revachim. You could argue that it might be part of the Fseidim also, but lav dafka. In Ois Kuf Hey of the Mata Shimon, he continues, what happens if he went and he bought, let's continue with this din of Shutaf Shashina, and he bought the wrong schayra. So he bought the wrong schayra, he went to the other town, bought the wrong schayra, and he lost, and he absorbed all the losses, everything kadas or kadin. Then he had extra cash on him, personal money that was not part of the shutfus, and he went and he bought a different schayra for himself. He says that's clear that he does not divide the profits with the other shutif, even if the money that he had was in the same bag as Moisa Shutfus.
Who writes this?
Mata Shimon Hagoyes Hatu and Hagoyes B'Yosef Ois Kuf Hey. He brings it from a Tshuvas Afkas Roichel to the B'Yosef Siman Kuf Samaches. This is what the B'Yosef paskins. He doesn't divide it with the other ones, even if the money is all mixed together. Comes the Mata Shimon and says, I don't understand how this fits with the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef paskins in the previous Sa'if that you can't do schayra to yourself. And according to the Smeh, if you do it to yourself, you take your own money, you do schayra minatzah during the shutfis, it goes to both. So he says we must say one of two answers. Either we're talking about a shutfis that meikara was established in such a way that each one could do whatever he wants, or the Beis Yosef clearly doesn't hold like the Smeh. And if the shutf went and did schayra la'atzmai on the side, yes, it's aser, but the revachim get split. The revachim are la'atzmai and not towards the shutfis. So the two answers that he gives, and I could think there's a third answer. It still goes to the shutfis. And I could tell you a third answer, and that is that maybe the shutfis was only on this chayda, and when this deal fell apart, the fact that he did a different deal afterwards is also maybe the Beis Yosef holds, then you don't have to have any stiris, and you could fit it with the Sman, the Shach, and everybody else. You don't have to get into discussion whether the Beis Yosef is machriya like the Smer or like the Shach. You can say maybe the Beis Yosef holds one way or the other, and it's not that they made a deal mechatchil, it's a pashta shutfas elamai. They made a shutfas on one schayra, and then that schayra finished. That didn't work out. Now he's doing something else because the original shutfas was l'chayra finished. Okay, now there's a Sefer Dvar Mishpat, which I already told you, like the history. You have the Knesset Agdela, Mata Shimon, Dvar Mishpat. 3 generations. I might be one of them is a grandson, one of the son and grandson. I'm not exactly sure if it's a great grandson or not. I don't remember offhand. But these 3 all wrote Hagoyes on the Tur and on the Beis Yosef. Different things, interesting things. And each one builds on the previous one. So the same, so the Dvar HaMishpat in Ois Lamed Vav points out over here, he says, go look in the book Meleches Shloime. He mentions this Avkas Rechel and says, go look in the book Meleches Shloime to Rav Shloime Chakim and Daf Nun. And over there, what does this Meleches Shloime discuss? Over there, that there was 2 Shutfim, and Reuven was the one who gave all the money for the original investment. Shimon didn't give any money. And Shimon was the one who was supposed to do all the work. And that's how the Shutfas are set up. And Reuven one day found this great deal to rent a martef, a storage house, a basement, whatever it is. He didn't have mamash cash at that moment. So he went and he took from the Kisa Shutfas, he took whatever money he needs. And a few days later he returned it. He rented, he put on the deposit, he rented it from the guy, and he then went, and a few days later, since he is Fartak Vir, he went, because he's the one who's putting all the money down, he went and put it back into the Keren. Comes Shimon and says, hey, you took money from the Shutfas. I want to have parts of the profit that you're going to make from this martef, from this rental. Why? Because this rental these profits come as a result of the money that you took from the Kisa Shutfas. And Reuven says, I didn't rent it for the purpose of making money. I rented it because I needed it. So now you're going to come and tell me that there's profits from it, and you should get a part. You should get parts of it. And it's the same thing as me going and buying a piece of clothing. It's not definitely, clearly not part of the Shutfas. He's not going to say that half of my jacket is yours. And the Chochmas Shloime over there answers that L'cha'ira Shimon is right. Yeah, a piece of Shimon is right because the money came from the Shutfas. Why? Based on a certain tshuva of the Marashdam, Choshen Mishpat Siman Yud Aleph, that the Marashdam makes a rule that anything which is done, the Shutfas is established on the understanding that each one is going to do what's best for the Shutfas, and is going to do things, whatever they're going to do is going to be that there's a Shutfas. And each one works for the purpose of benefiting the Shutfas. So therefore, l'cha'ira, the profits from this should be for the Shutfas. Choshen Mishpat Siman Yud Aleph. This is what the Chochma Shloime says. Keep track of the history. The Dvar HaMishpat send you to the Chochma. Dvar HaMishpat quotes his father, the Mata Shimon. On that he says, go look in the Chochma Shloime. The Chochma Shloime brings the question. He says, maybe according to the Marashdam, Shimon is right, the one who said it should be for the Shutfas. But then he says, no. The Marashdam doesn't apply to here. Why? Because in the case of the Marashdam, if you're going to look in the Marashdam over there and read the story, over there, the reason why, when a person took money out of the Kisa Shutfas and did something, that it becomes for the benefit of the Shutfas and the Revachim are for the Shutfas, is because the actual Shutfas got damaged to a certain degree from this deal. And therefore, because when I took money out to do something, I caused some sort of hezek to the Shutfas, therefore, the benefit is also for the Shutfas. But over here, Shimon didn't have any loss from it. The money was anyway sitting Kevin Shein L'Hoifchen. He didn't need the money that day. He was continuing to sell. He was continuing to do what he had to do. And even more so, the fact that Reuven went and put the money back right away within a few days, it's clearly a proof that he did not do it for the purpose of the Shutfas. Masha'inkin in the case of the Marashdam, where it's not so clear. And therefore he says that the din is with Reuven, and any profits that result out of this deal belong only to Reuven.
So you would say, according to Marashdam, the only case in which it would go to the Shutfas is if someone took money, caused the damage, and then there's...
One way of understanding the Marash Dam. Second way of looking at it is, if he gives three things, that purchasing rather than renting is another svara. And the third one is, if he didn't put the money back in. And he claims, oh, I owe money to the shutfas. Then that doesn't work. It's three ways of limiting the Marash Dam.
This is a very specific word. It basically changes the whole halacha of shinu. Not to do anything technically, as long as you just don't make a loss.
Yeah, but we're talking over here. Yeah, we're soon going to get to it. Sometimes a shinui, we have to calculate if there's a loss. There's some achreinim that hold, that it's not initially pasha that every shinui you become responsible. You have to be able to prove that the shinui is what caused this specific loss. Not every shinui because you become responsible. We'll get to it soon. I'll say that. The Mechaber brings a second example. Because the Mechaber is going, what happens if you took the money of the shutfus and you became a shutaf with somebody else, then, which is against the rules, then the hefsed is your hefsed, and the revach is to the shutfus. But if you became a shutaf with another person with your own money and not with momin shutfus, the revachim is yours and the hefsedim are yours. The Smer right away points out, look at what I wrote in Sif Kot Lamed Beis. On the previous Sif, over there, what does the Smer write? That if you do schayra with your own money on the side, then it's for both. But over here it's different because you use your own money to do a schayra with somebody else. And in that case, it doesn't belong to the shutfus. It's only when and you could be mevayired based to a certain degree. You could understand it's all based on the shibud. We discussed in the Sivis about the shibud that a shutaf has to each other, and that might answer why the shibud, the person has a shibud that whatever he does with himself is for the tevas shutfas. So he has a shibud, he takes his own money, and he invests in his own deal without anybody else. You could understand that's still meshubah to the shutfas. But when you go and you start a new deal with somebody else, lav dafka that's meshubah to them. The Pamoin Zov explains what's the discussion over here. Why is there bichlal a discussion? Because according to logic, let's switch to logic, forget about the shibud, forget about everything. We could use a certain logic. If I spent my money and not the shutfas money, it belongs to me. General discussion. My own money and my own profit, my own losses. Pamin Zav Sefkot Mechav says, no. So what's the svara bichlal? That there's a hava mineh that you should not do it. That the shutfus should get it, is because, what would you think? You had a svara. When I become a shutaf with you, and then you go and make a separate deal with somebody else, your efforts are not in the shutfas that we're supposed to. You become negligent. You're no longer putting your full energy into the original shutfas. And therefore, your negligence is causing a loss to the original shutfas. Instead of that, what did you do? You took 3 hours a day out of the original shutfas and invested it somewhere else. Therefore, those 3 hours, which essentially belong to the original shutfas, even if you do your own money, should belong to the whole shutfas. Kamash Malan, that's not so. That being that there was no discussion of the original money was not part of it. The Momin HaShutfus was not what created this separate deal. Therefore, it belongs only to the person who had the money. And now the Pamin Zav clearly takes the approach similar to the Shach, that even when you do with Momin Atzmi for yourself, not like the Smeh, even though it's Aser, the profits are all yours. And he's medayik, that's what the Beis Yosef paskins. He's medayik like that from the Beis Yosef. That seems like back to what we discussed before. That he could be medayik from the Beis Yosef, maybe that he paskins that similar with the svara of the Shach, that b'mamin atzma is always a revachim or both. The only shaila is if it's an isur or not. The Pamen Zov continues. What happens now let's say they made a shutfus between them, such an extreme shutfus that says that even if you find a mitzvah during the time of the shutfus, it belongs to both of us. He says this, that you make it, that one becomes a shutuf for somebody else, is not bichlal begeder mitzvah. It's a separate discussion. But then he concludes, he says, L'maisa tzarichiyun, and this whole discussion, and maybe there is a, maybe you might be compared to a mitzvah, and maybe the person, you could claim some revachim. He puts a question, but he's not going to pass it against the mechaber, but that's, he lives in tzarichiyun.
If he wants to argue mechaber in the mitzvah?
Yeah, he wants to argue on the concept. He says, he puts questions, and he says, tzarichiyun, I don't know what the answer to the questions is. He's not arguing l'halacha. He just puts a couple questions on it and says, L'maisa, obviously he's not going to argue with the mechaber. Yeah. The question is if this is compared to mitzvah, a deal that I make on the side with somebody else. There's a Knesses Agdoila, which really belongs to the discussion we had in the previous Siman, but we'll still discuss it now because today it was brought up. Hagoyes Atur Ois Pei Dalad. One shutuf comes and tells the other shutuf, hey, I became a partner with Reuven, tells Shimon, I became a partner with Levi. Shimon responds to Reuven, Besimano Tavo. Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, whatever it is. The Knesset Agdela says that you can still claim that it's not considered askame. I gave him good wishes for whatever he's doing with somebody else. I'm his friend. It doesn't mean that he came, he told me, oh, you became a shutuf for somebody else. With moment of shutfus, I told him Mazel Tov, but I still retain my rights. The fact that I told somebody Mazel Tov, I wish him good luck because I know that if he's going to make profits, I'll make profits also. Doesn't mean that I'm willing to absorb the losses. He still violated the rules. And Ois Peiches, the Knesset Agdela says, another interesting din, if let's say the two shutfim, one and he knows that the other shutf is a wild guy. He's going to lend back, or he's going to violate all the rules of the previous if. He might give money, he might give it on credit, he might sell it in the place, take it to a different town, he might, very a jumpy person, and he'll go based on his, that moment, and he'll do what he has to, what he thinks is best without thinking and without considering the din of the shutfas. He knows it. He knows this is his partner, as a wild guy. He knows this is who I have as a shutuf. And he goes ahead and he sends him schayra to sell. Not that he told him go buy schayra. He's the one who sends him the schayra, and he sends him the schayra to sell. He can't come later and say, hey, you shina meminaga shutfim, shina from the shutfas. It doesn't work anymore. All the shinuyim. If you know, it's a general klal. If you know that this partner of yours is not going to follow the standard rules, is not going to follow the shinuyim, and you still go ahead and you partner with him, deal with it. Knesses Hagdoila, Hagoyes Atur Ois Peiches. The Mechaber discusses about losses, that the person keeps, if he's a shina, he keeps a little vachim. He keeps all the losses. He keeps the losses are for himself, and the revachim get split. Comes to Knesset Agdela and says, "Hey, what? This whole discussion, if you bring a third nishtatef with a third person, you split the revachim. I understand, but there's a third person here. Does he get part of the revachim also or not? How do you split it?" So he says like this: if the third person, let's say Reuven brings in Levi, and Reuven and Shimon are shutfim, and Reuven brings in Levi. And Levi didn't put in any money into the deal. Hey, he did some work, whatever it is. Reuven can't tell Shimon, and there's profits, a lot of profits. Reuven can't tell Shimon, we're splitting it three ways. He didn't put any money. Levi didn't put any money. Elamai, Reuven has to split his chelik with Levi. Reuven gets 25%, Levi gets 25%, and Shimon gets his 50% that he had in Chatchila. But if Levi went and put in his own money into the deal, means Reuven brought in Levi, and Levi went and put down, let's say Reuven and Shimon put each on $500,000, and Levi comes and puts another $500,000, and together they were able to buy this property. then Levi gets a third of the profits. And then he adds, if Levi didn't put in any money, but he worked so much, and it's clear that the reason why they made so much money off this deal is because of Levi's work, then Levi will still get a third. This is the Knesset Agdela, and over there in Agoy Satur, Ois, Tzadik Hey, and Tzadik Vav, in the name of the Ranach, which is Shas Maim Amukim, Chelik Aleph, Siman Samach Dalet. What? Knesset Agdela, Agoy Satur, Ois, Tzadik Hey, Tzadik Vav, in the name of the Ranach, Chelik Aleph, Siman Samach Dalet. Now, we'll continue with the Knesset Agdela, because here's another interesting thing. What happens if you didn't bring in a third partner, but you brought in a worker? What kind of worker? Reuven and Shimon were partners, and Reuven was supposed to, let's say, the part of the responsibility of Shimon was to go and travel to this town, take a ship and travel somewhere and buy whatever products he has to buy. Shimon got lazy, and he hired some young guy to do the work instead of him. So, in Ois Tzadik Zayin, Knesset Agdela, Agoy Satur, Ois Tzadik Zayin, brings in the name of the Marashdam, Choshen Mishpat Siman Kuf Pei Beis. This is considered enough of a shinui that if there is a loss, you absorb the full losses. Because the deal of the Shutfus was that you're supposed to go do the work yourself, and you didn't. But if there's a shinui enough that if there's a loss, it's a loss for both. It's a loss for him only. And if there's a revach, it's a revach for both. The Beis Yosef in Mechudesh Ois Yud Beis brings in the name of the Ma'arik Shoresh Tesvav, a general rule. When it comes to Shutfus, every kind of shinui that you do, that you know that probably your friend is going to be makpid on it, you didn't ask him, and it was not discussed before, but you know your friend, you know your shutaf, and you know that this kind of thing is the kind of thing that he's not going to be too happy with. Then, every hefsed that comes as a result of this shinui, that could be proven that it came as a result of this shinui, is his responsibility. Ad kan divrei Marik. Comes the Knesset Agdela, Nagoyes Beis Yosef Ois Kuftes, and don't mix between the two. The Agoyes Knesset Agdela and Mata Shimon of Agoyes Satur, Agoyes Beis Yosef. So Agoyes Satur. Until now we discussed Knesset Agdela, Agoyes Beis Yosef. Now we're discussing Knesset Agdela, we discussed Knesset Agdela, Agoyes Satur. Now we're discussing Knesset Agdela, Agoyes Beis Yosef. Ois Kuftes. Huh?
Another guy, then you also in the Revach goes lament. After we should lay the Reuven, should not be the Allah help the Revach commission.
Come on, she's schemo. What if there's no schemo?
It's not Reuven knowing.
Huh?
It's not Reuven knowing.
But from who? From which chelik does it take? Over there, maybe because he brought in money. It fits into the thing. If he brought in money. But here we're talking about. Let's go back to this. Beis Yosef and Mechudesh Yud Beis, in the name of the Ma'arik, that if you do a change, any hefsed as a result of this change, you pay. Comes the Knesset Agdela, goes Beis Yosef Ois Kuftes, and he quotes a Marashdam, and the Marashdam in different shuvas that he says that even though the Beis Yosef himself didn't bring the Ma'arik and the Mechaber, still in all the Ma'arik kedai lismech alav. You could rely on him. However, why? Because nobody's chaylik on the Ma'arik. Nobody says faket. Which is hard to understand because you could understand that that a hefsed that comes, you don't have to prove a shinui. Over here, it seems like only a hefsedim that are proven from the shinui. But he says, the Marashdam says, "En lecha b'yei lechidushei." And therefore, the Marashdam says, if you do not see that this hefsed came as a result of this shinui, then he's not responsible to pay the hefsedim just because he did a shinui. And in Ois Kuf Yud Gimel, the Knesset Agdela brings from Mahari Galika a tshuva in Ksav Yad, That the pshitus, he says, that if the hefsed did not come as a result of the shinui, he's potter. Another thing that's mentioned over there in Knesset Agdela and Agoyes, Beis Yosef, and Ois Kuf Yud Aleph, he brings from Shalos Tshuvas Lechem Rav, Siman Kuf Yud Zayin. If I have shutfus chayra, and I have my own chayra, and I mixed the chayra together, when I traveled, and I had to do, I was selling my chayra, I was selling the shutfus chayra, and they all got mixed together, and the hefset came as a result of it, that's enough of a shinui to cause that I should be responsible for the losses.
The Marik is talking about specifically in the case of Marik, or in any case we've made a shinui?
Any case, general rule. So Marik is also seems like the Marashdam is medayek from the Marik. This whole din of shinui, a general rule, this whole din of shinui to become responsible for losses is only if the loss could be traced back to the shinui. And it fits into the discussion we had in the previous year. Does shinui cancel the whole shutfus or not? Huh?
Marik, what does Marik say? Marik says that if you know that your shutfus is macro, you're not allowed to make the shinui. That's what Marik says, yeah?
Yeah. And then you're responsible for the hefsedim.
Right. And the Marik
the Marik says that you're responsible for the hefsedim that came as a result of this shinui. The Marashdam says that clearly implies that what happens fakert, if you cannot trace the hefset to the shinui, then you're not responsible for the hefsedim. And the Marik Galika doesn't go into the whole discussion, just as b'pshitis, that every hefset, every shinui that causes a hefsed, you have to be able to show that the hefsed, or the bezin has to be able to ascertain that the shinui caused the hefsed. There's a Mishpat Shalom earlier where it discusses that if money was given to, if the shutfus went into, and this is a famous Mishpat Shalom, if the shutfus is in financial straits, and it's a problem, it has problems, and one of the shutfim went and gave tzedakah, a lot of tzedakah, or gave a kvittel to a rebbe who gave a lot of money for it, and let's say it worked out, he can't come afterwards and claim from his shutef, refund what I invested in this tzaddik. Why? Because it's not something which is always done. It's not something which everybody goes for it.
Not because of that.
Huh?
Not because you can't attribute the success.
No, that's not.
You can't ask for a refund.
The other shutef can't say to the shutef that put down the money can't say, I want back half from the shutfus. I want to get a refund from the shutfus for what I invested in the tzaddik.
They're shutfim, they're sure going to get it.
Why? But this is not the normal course of business. The Mishpat Shalom says.
And I got the two guys here had $100 in business.
No, talking about a tzaddik, right? We're not talking about a business.
Oh, one of them are tzaddik?
No, they invested in tzedakah, spiritual investments. It's on Sif Yud, and he says, Nishalti, I had a question. This is a Mishpat Shalom on Sif Yud. He says, Beis Shutfim, I'm going to read it so that way it's clear. Beis Shutfim she'amdu be'esek shutfusam b'chashash hefset godel. They were facing a problem. Upizer echad mehem sach rav l'tzedakah. V'sholach letzadikei hazman lispal lavur zeh b'lo yedias hasheni. He took from his own pocket a lot of money. He sent it. he gave tzedakah. He went and he paid people to go daven by tzaddikim, which means he also has to pay the tzaddik to daven. Then afterwards he wants and he says, I put in $25,000 into this business deal, into this tzedakah venture to save the company. I want that to be considered an investment in the company, a shutfus, and therefore I have to get a refund of half from you. I took it from my own pocket. And the answers, Mr. Shon says, it's not something which is standard in shutfus. A lot of people don't do these kinds of things. I don't know if he's referring to asking from tzaddik a bracha or giving tzedakah or both. You could discuss what he's referring to. Harbe noisim kain. Shouldn't have done it. Especially if the second shutaf is one that doesn't believe in the Rebbe. So definitely you shouldn't have done it without speaking to him. That's the Mishpat Shalom.
Consciously means that it's not meaning it's not a regular thing people do for business.
For business, yeah. And he says, and if you should have a misnagid, for sure you can't do it without his permission.
But if the other shutaf has already done this kind of thing, they agree on it. The only problem was the tzaddik, this particular tzaddik doesn't.
What happens if it didn't work out? What happens if it did work out? If it did work out, maybe it's a shinui. If it's a shinui, then the revach is l'shneim and the hefset is l'emtza.
How much do you attribute to the shinui?
Huh?
How much of what happens next to attribute to the shinui?
Depends. If you ask that tzaddik what property to buy, and he tells you, then you can zich dingen if it's a shinui that you acquire or not.
I understand one part of the story.
What part?
What's your right if you invest your own pocket money? It's nothing to do with. I'm not right.
But it's for the tevis shutfus.
You can't come back to me.
Sure, you could.
Where's that halacha? Where we see?
You give a government money, pay it.
Where do we see? The old halacha is that if people we get a shutfus and not out of knowledge. Shala is, but that has to the rebbe from that. If someone gets more money than not.
No, but if somebody puts in that there's a need for something to be done for the shutfus, it's later discussed if a person takes back things that he brought into the shutfus, right? If a person has to do something that it's clearly a tevis shutfus. Clearly, he does. He's invested tevis shutfus. It's right now they're doing a building b'shutfus.
I understand it, but now the schar is going to be left to me. But to say that you could be given a credit from.
Let's do an example of not like this. You have a shutfus, and there's a fine that has to be paid by this and this day. And there's no money in the account of the shutfus. And if you don't pay the fine, if you don't pay this fee, you could lose the whole property. Comes one shutuf and takes out of his pocket that money, lends it to the shutfus to save the project of the shutfus. Obviously, you get it back. Standard, because he did it with tevis shutfus. He didn't do it with tevis atzmai. That's not considered a shinui. So over here, the question is, it's considered part of the action that you do with tevis shutfus. Now, from the Knesset Agdela, we'll move to the Mata Shimain. A few things that the Mata Shimain brings in this area of this discussion, which are connected to this Sa'if somewhat. And before we continue to the third Nekud in the Mechaber, and then we'll go to the Ramah. The Mata Shimain in Agoyes Beis Yosef Ois Kuf Daled. He brings from his Knesset Agdela, from the Tshuvas Knesset Agdela. Tshuvas Knesset Agdela is Boi Chaye. Yeah, that's the Tshuvas name of Tshuvas Knesset Agdela. Boi Chaye or Boi Chaye, I don't remember. If they're shutfim, not in money, but they're shutfim in sarserus, that means they're shutfim in selling things. And one person goes and does a certain action that the other one technically could stop him from doing. Whatever the action is. And the other person went and did it anyways. Then that's considered like he became a shutef with other people with his own money. Why? Because sarserus is not, you're not putting your own money, you're putting your own effort. So if I go and I put in my own effort into something that the other person doesn't want me to do, it's as if I took my own effort and was mishtatef with other people in it. And therefore, the Revlachim and the Hafsedim are all his. That's in Ois Kuf Daled. In Ois Kuf Zayin, he brings this scenario. We're talking about, again, if one person became a shutaf with somebody else, and the deal was one person puts in the money, another person puts in the work. And he's let's say, owner of a store, and he brings in a worker, a good worker, and he tells him, whatever you sell in the store, half of the profits are yours. He's obviously not allowed to do any other side businesses during that time. Why? Because he's going to mess up his own shutfas. He's going to mess up the shutfas. But if the balabayas is there, and he's watching him doing it, and he doesn't do anything about it, in this case, that's enough to say that it's not considered a shinui from the shutfas. So over here it could be, we say, maybe this is a kind of shtika keido when he's mashgiach on him in the store, and he sees that he's doing other business deals on the side. It's not considered a shinui from the shutfas. And he's medayik like that from the Chuvas Hagainim and Taisvis and other people. Ois Kuf Ches and Kuf Vav. He brings Kuf Ches, I'm starting Kuf Ches and then Kuf Vav, even though he put Kuf Vav earlier, because it's both in the same Tshuva. It's the Tshuva Mati Yosef, Choshen Mishpat, Chelik Aleph, Siman Tes. This is what the Mata Shimon brings in the Goyes Beis Yosef, Ois Kuf Ches and Kuf Vav. He says a person was hired as a shadar, as a fundraiser for the koilels. That's how it was in those days. There wasn't, there was this koilel and that koilel and that Yisrael, and they would travel to Chutz La'aretz to collect money, mois, tzitkas eretz Yisrael. He says, Kuli Alma, he receives half of the money. Yeah. Why? It's similar to a person who hires somebody to sit in the store, l'machzeh sachar. So Kuli Alma. He says, the Kuli Alma, the Mati Yosef says. Without being mefared at anything. He says, that's the standard. Interesting is a minor from the Rebbe from Mvav that even the Tinnik knows that if you take half to private, it's not tzedakah. But talking about, in case you want to know what the source is, if anybody ever asks you what the source is that the fundraiser takes 50%, he tells the Mati Yosef, that's quoted in the Shas Chuvas Mati Yosef, quoted in the Mata Shimon on Siman Kufayin Vav. Filu Tinnik knows, even a baby knows that when you give tzedakah, you can't take half for yourself for private hands. When you take. Now the Mati Yosef continues, like he gives an example, says, now what happens if they made a specific deal? The fundraiser made a deal with the koilel. He says, yes, half goes to the koilel, except for if I find monies that used to belong to my father. It means any money I'm going to bring belongs to the koilel. Half to the koilel, half to me. Except for if I locate in Chutz La'aretz properties that belong to my father, or money that belong to my father. That's only all mine. He says then, if he goes and he does any other kind of business investments, business deals, buying, selling while he's traveling for the koilel, it also belongs half to the koilel, even if he uses his own money for those deals. Because they made it Tanai Melchatchila, Hisnu Meikara, that the only exception to the profits is Avoin Aviv. If he finds money that belongs to his father. Anything else is not part of it. It's not part of this deal. A big chiddush. You're shutaf. Okay. I say a story, it's a joke, maybe it's a joke, maybe it's not a joke, about a person, there's a big vir, Chutz La'aretz, he used to send money to a bunch of yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael. He visited them, and then the fundraisers would come to him also to come, once here, once there. And he used to also travel to Eretz Yisrael to check up on the Moses that he gave money to. He got old, and he didn't have a chance to check up on the Moses that he gave to a lot of Moses in Eretz Yisrael. But he continued. Anytime a fundraiser came, he would continue. Then, he hired a new person in his office, and he told the person in his office, it's been 4 or 5 years since I traveled to Eretz Yisrael. Here's the list of all the people I give money to. I want you to travel in Eretz Yisrael and check up on all the Moses. Tell me, this Moses became bigger, this Moses became smaller, what's going on? The guy goes for 2 months or a month, whatever it is, does a whole circle, all the Moses in Eretz Yisrael that the guy gives money to. You don't have to write this down. And he comes back and he gives him a report. He says, this yeshiva in Yerushalayim got bigger. This yeshiva in Bnei Brak bought another building for the dormitory. Goes to the whole list and says, this yeshiva over there in Yerushalayim, the other yeshiva, they are no longer in existence. He says, how long are they not in existence? About 3 years. So he says, okay. A few months later, comes the shadar for that yeshiva, back to the Gvir, as for his annual donation. He comes in, and the guy gives him $18,000. So the guy looks at him and he says, all the previous years you used to give $20,000. Why are you giving only $18,000 this year? So he says, listen, I know the yeshiva shut down. So the 10% that used to go to the yeshiva, I don't have to give you anymore. But the 90% for you, I know you for 40 years. I'm not gonna make you lose money off the deal. Anyways, yeah. Let's go back to the Mata Shimon Ois Kuftes Nagoyes Beis Yosef. That goes back to a person who hired somebody to work in a store. He hired him with a salary, not a shutef. Hired somebody to work in a salary. Or maybe a shutef only in certain percentages, whatever it is. And that worker went, and during the hours that he's supposed to be working in this store, he took another store in the same building. And he was supposed to be working on the mall on floor 1. He got a good deal. He invested in the store upstairs. He brings from the Shas Teshuvah Zekan Aaron, not the Zekan Aaron that we know about from right before the Holocaust, but the Zekan Aaron from 400 years ago, Siman Samachei, that the person who hired him, the Baal HaChanus, could ask for 50% of the Revachim that he makes in the other store. Why? Because he has a shibud for all those hours he's supposed to be working for him. And the fact that he went and he's doing another job on the clock, anything that comes from that becomes like a shutef with him. It's also something which comes up in Titus once in a while. Specifically not when you do this, but let's say a person is working, and during the time that he's working, he goes and he establishes another business or something. And a lot of times these things come up. If I paid you a salary, and every day you spend 2-3 hours building up another business, I should have a chelik in it because I paid you for it.
Wow.
That's a discussion that comes up a lot.
What if he does something that only takes minutes?
I don't know. What, he places a stock market whenever there's nothing happening? I don't know. But it's something to argue about. Let's go Ois Kuf Yud in Nagoyes Beis Yosef of the Mata Shimon. Another similar situation. If you hire somebody to be your worker to sell a certain product that you have in a different town, and you tell him that he's going to receive a quarter of all the profits, plus I'm paying all the travel expenses, food, hotels, everything. Until all the schayra is sold, you're on my bill. And this guy traveled, and he wasn't able to sell the schayra. He sees that there's no market for the schayra now. So he went, he deposited all the schayra in a warehouse. It's locked, it's safe, it's not a problem, protected, in one of these storage areas. And in the meantime, he's like, there's potential here to make other businesses. And he went and he made another business for himself with his own money. He made a lot of money from it. So the Mata Shimon brings the name of the Tashbetz, that in such a scenario, obviously all the Revachim are his because he used his own money. However, obviously, he has to pay for the expenses that he took from, if he took any money that, if there was any money that he spent on the original person's bill, then he has to give that back to the person. He can't use the travel expenses to make another business. But it's not the same as the previous one where he gets a salary. Because over here there's no shibud. Over here he is getting 25% of the profits. It's a different kind. It's not a salary that he's paying him by the hour, or it's not meshubah to him. So that's the difference between this one and the zakan adam, between tashbis and zakan adam.
He made it tonight that he's going to pay the salaries from the profits.
No, he made it tonight that he's going to give him, no salary, he's getting 25% of whatever he sells. And he couldn't sell it, but he says, just you shouldn't lose money, well, as long as you don't sell the project, the products, I'm giving you all expenses. So if he spent any from the expenses from the guy, from the original guy, he has to pay that back to him. But he doesn't become a shutaf with the original guy doesn't become a shutaf with him in the new business deal.
Until he realizes he can't make profit, because
he doesn't have to, because he tried. It's until he put it in storage. At that point in time is when he could see, from that point he has to refund everything. Now let's jump to the same Mata Shimon, but not in Agois Bes Yosef, which we discussed until now, but in Agois Hatur, Ois Tzadik Gimel. He brings a tshuva from the Radbaz, Chelik Beis Siman Tov Yud Zayin. Two Shutfim that made the deal between them that each person could hire certain employees to help him out. That means, yes, each Shutaf has to do his work, and each Shutaf has to put in money, but each Shutaf has the right to hire specific employees to do work for him. And Shimon wants to bring Pliny ben Pliny as a worker. And Reuven comes and says, I don't want this guy. He's going to mess up our business. I know him. Then the Radbaz says that you have to look, the Bezna has to look into it. If it's not true, he could stop him from doing it. But if it's not true, his Stam hates him for whatever reason, then he can't stop, because the deal was he could hire any employee. You can't stop him from hiring that employee. Let's go back to the Mechaber. Yeah.
In general, a person has delegation can't even stop with spare irons. The reason is because they can be share.
Yeah.
I get another worker for the worker.
No, but that's a deal. The deal was each one hires another worker, huh? Yeah.
So you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, but that depends. If the only reason, if one guy gives me money, that I should be, he's going to put the money, I'm going to do the work.
I get an employee, I'm sure this happens.
And I get an employee and what? That I should sit at home and watch TV.
I'm paying it.
But I'm going to go, if I'm going to charge it to the shutfis, the price of this employee, what am I gaining over here? I'm nothing. What did I make money? What am I, a shatchen? That's it? I should make 50% of the profits of being a shatchen? No. The only reason I hired you is because I knew your skills and I wanted you to be part of the shutfis. If I wanted that guy, I could have hired him.
No.
Get out of the picture.
This guy wants profit.
Who?
Getting the profit, the same amount of money now. I just got an employee. I got a better offer. Instead of working for you, I got a bigger job. I can give the money now and work with another. So you think you should have?
Depends, but then he's walking out of the shutfis. He brings somebody else instead of him. The other guy could say, I don't like this guy.
He's nothing to do with it. He's doing the job. The guy's doing
Some of the job, I need to have somebody, the reason I hired you is because I trust you. The reason I brought you in is because I trust you, I like how you think, I like how you get out of problems. So yes, if you're bringing, say, another employee into the business without my reshus, but this employee still tevas hashutfus is one thing. You're being mashgiach on him, you're keeping him in specific jobs, things that have to be done. Maybe it should come out from your chelik, not from my chelik. Mekenzach dingen of them. You could argue on this specific point. But to just me go and hire somebody to do all the work and I'll just sit at home? No. Why should you give money to me for me to get somebody else? If you don't want to be part of it, you don't want to do the work, walk off, I'll get somebody else to do it. You don't get money for doing nothing. B'chlal, b'derech klal in life, you don't get money for not doing anything. The Mechaber concludes this Sa'if, before we get to the Ramah, the third Nekuda. If they made a Tanai between them, everything is according to the Tanoim. The Aruch HaShulchan over here, Sifkat Lamedalet, points out, why does this Mechaber, it seems like it implies, why did the Mechaber put this at the end of the whole thing? After the discussion that if you do Schayre b'momin shel atzmecha im acherim, shtatef b'momin atzme im acherim, revach sheloi and the hefset sheloi, to tell you that Lu Yitzur, they made such a Tanai, that even if I use my own money, it's still part of the Shutfis, Akoy Lefit Noam, which fits with what Shimon said before about the Shadar. But if they made such a deal, everything is going to this deal.
Even if what?
The Shutfim made a deal that even things that each one does on his own money, on the side, it still becomes part of the Shutfis, that deal still stands. There's a Pischei Choshen, which is Medayik from the Levush Farkert, but I looked in the Levush, and there's no way to be Medayik like that from the Levush. I don't know how he was. He passed away already, so I can't ask him what he meant, and he didn't explain it in Pischei Choshen, so we'll just leave it at that. The Bord Heitev, over here, Sifkot Lamet Ches, brings from a Sefer Bonei Chaye. It's not from the Knesset Agdela, but similar style. It's shorter. Hagoy Satur Ois Lamed Daled. And this is a very important Nekuda. If they made between them different Tanoim, and they violated the Tanoim, the Shutfis does not become bottle. Why? Because it didn't say that the Shutfis is Tolui in these Tanoim. And therefore, if they want to be Mevatel the Shutfis, they could come to Bezdin, and Bezdin has to look and determine, and Bezdin could be Mevatel it.
So you want to make it at the beginning, you can't change anymore.
Shutfis in the beginning, you can't change it. You made it tonight, and you violated it. But that's not enough to cancel the Shutfis and say, okay, I want you out of the deal. And he brings that the Bani Chaya brings the name of the Mabit, Chelik Aleph Siman Kuf Nun Aleph. And he also points out that the Lechem Rav and Siman Kuf Yutes disagrees with him. And he says there's a way to match them together, but that's...
That if they change it, playing earlier, I'm not saying that if they change, they still you just have to pay whatever has that they cost.
No, if I violated the Tanai, not a kum v'aseh. This is what the Pischei Tshuva is going to get to in a second. Pischei Tshuva disagrees with it. It discusses what it is. Now, it's mashma from this that if they made it...
So, who said this again?
The Bar Heitev brings it in the name of the Bani Chaya, who brings it in the name of the Mabit. Which is mashma from the Mabit, that if they made the Shutfas and they made deals and they made a condition that the Shutfas is totally in these deals, the Shutfas does become bottle. The Aruch HaShulchan says that you can never be mevatel a Shutfas because of a Tanai, because of violating a Tanai. The Pischei Tshuva brings the Bar Heitev that we just quoted, and he says, look in Shas HaTshuvas Mayim Chaim, Choshen Mishpat Siman Yud Zayin. And over there he says that if they disagree, if somebody violated the Tanai or didn't violate the Tanai, then he's not Ne'eman unless, if one guy claims that the other guy violated the Tanai, he's not Ne'eman unless there's a strong amasla that he did violate the Tanai. But he makes a differentiation, the Mayim Chaim, between a Tanai that you're supposed to do something, a kum v'asei, or a Tanai that you're not supposed to do something. If it's a Tanai of kum v'asei that you didn't do, then for sure you can't be mevatel the shutfus. But if it's a Tanai of don't do something and you went ahead and you did it, that's where it goes into a discussion whether you could be mevatel the shutfus or not. Comes that Ramah brings two dinim, and I see that the clock is up against me, so I'm only going to have to discuss the first one from the Ramah, and that is, says, this is also very important Ramah about a shutef who can't do certain work, and the responsibility of the other shutef to do it on his behalf. That's the first din of the Ramah. The second din of the Ramah is if one shutef is moichel the chayvus of the other one. Let's discuss the first one. The second one I don't have time to. And the second one is a much bigger topic. Much bigger machlekes, and there's a shach and the sivs, I'm not going to be able to get to it. Reuven and Shimon are shutfim, and a certain mayor, king, paritz, sar, whatever, some kind of person who controls a tract of land, that owes him money, and Reuven lives in this person's territory, and Reuven is the one who did the business deal, the loan with the sar. And now comes the time that the loan has to be paid. Reuven goes over to Shimon and tells Shimon, I can't do it. I live there. I'm scared of him. If I'm going to go collect the money from him, he's going to throw me out. I'll be toast. I can't do it. I'll be a hezek for the shutfus. Could even be a hezek for the shutfus. The Ramah doesn't mention this, but this is, so the Aruch HaShulchan adds this knetch into it. Might be a hezek for the shutfus. And Shimon tells him, me? I don't know the guy from beans. You did it. You lent him the money. You go get it. So the Ramah says, Adin im Reuven. Adin im Reuven. The Reuven doesn't have to do it, and Shimon has to go do it because Reuven, if he's going to go do it, it might cause a hezek. That's what the Ramah brings the name of Shas Tshuvas HaRosh. The Aruch HaShulchan in Sifkot Lamed Ches uses this Rosh to build on it a few different nekudas. We're going to do part of the Aruch HaShulchan and then the Sivis and back to the Aruch HaShulchan. First thing, he says, Shutfim have to be, both of them have to invest all their time and energy in the Shutfus without Orme or Mirma, without tricks and without scams, to be no better word for it. Therefore, Aruch HaShulchan says, if there is anything in the Shutfus that one of them cannot do it himself, because if he would, it's going to cause a hefsed to the property, because if he's going to yagia hefsed la'isik, so there's a chiyuv on the other shutef to do it himself. And what example does it bring for this din? The story that the Ramah brings. That means that he adds to it the element that there has to be a hefsed to the shutfus. Yeah, that's how he starts. Now we'll jump to the Sivis for a second. The Sivis over here is Sifkot and Chavav and Biurim. Gives two conditions to what the Ramah says. That Hadinim Reuven, that Shimon has to go do the work, it gives two conditions to it. Number one, the choiv that Reuven lent, that means the money that Reuven lent to the Sar was b'dias Shimon. Shimon had to know about it. And Shimon was masking. Because if Shimon did not know about it and was not masking for this loan, then and Reuven is chickening out from going to collect it, then Reuven is going to have to pay the hefsed because he did something, a shinui in the shutfus that he wasn't allowed to do. Number two, that Reuven moved to this town under this paritz after the loan was already done, or that his fear began after the loan was already done. Because if not so, he's a Pesheya. Why is he a Pesheya? Because he should have told his partner, Shimon, when he lent the money to the paritz, he should just know where I'm going to lend this money to the paritz. But I'll never be able to collect it because I'm petrified of him, because I live under him. I'm not going to be able to do it. And if he didn't, then he's a Pesheya, because he gave money that he can never collect. And he's a Mazik B'Yadayim, the Siva says. But if the fear came later, or he moved there later, then he's not considered a Pesheya. That's what the Nesiva says in Biurim, Sifkot Nechavav, and he summarizes it in Chidushim, Sifkot Nechavtes. The Aruch HaShulchan brings it, and the Aruch HaShulchan adds on it another element in the Sifkot and the Sif Lamed Ches of the Aruch HaShulchan. Huh? 2 Tnaim. The Aruch HaShulchan adds a third element to it. He says that even if Reuven was a Pesheya, still Shimon should go and get the loan from the paritz. Why? Why? Because Shimon is not losing anything by going to the paritz. All he could do is, he's not losing anything. Reuven is going to lose by going to the paritz. Shimon is not going to lose anything. So even though Reuven was a Pesheya and he did everything wrong, still Shimon should go and do it.
Where do you see the fact that Aruch
example, there has to be a hefsek.
He says in the beginning. Yeah.
The Ramban just says that he's misyarder because he just give it.
Right, I'm saying the Aruch HaShulchan says that the Aruch HaShulchan reframes the whole thing that it has to be a hefsek. Yeah, it is. As I said. Huh?
Why should you say that Ramban?
Because otherwise, why should the other shutaf suffer? Because the fact that I'm going to get kicked out of my house has any bearing on the shutfas? Huh? That's what the Rosh says. But I'm saying the Aruch HaShulchan reframes it differently. The Mishpat Shalom over here brings the hafla in Kuntres Achrin, in Kiddushin Kuntres Achrin Siman Tzadik Ches. The hafla paskins like in the Sivis, and the hafla adds.
That has to be after. That has to be lent it after. He lent it before he became.
Yeah, before he lived there, or before he got scared. Yeah. But the Mishpat Shalom brings the hafla. What the hafla adds that we're talking about over here, that the second shutaf doesn't know bichlal the sar, and that's why there's a whole discussion whether he has to go and then go talk to the sar on behalf of Reuven. But if the second shutaf also knows the same sar, so for sure there's no discussion that obviously he should go do it. Whether regardless of what happens, even if it was a pesheya, he says you know him, go do it for sure. He says the whole discussion of the nesivis, all these conditions in the nesivis, are talking about when Shimon does not know the second sar, and therefore Lav Dafka will be able to collect it, but he still has to do it, and then it's a shayla if he was a pesheya or he wasn't a pesheya, what kind of responsibility? But if he knows him the same way, then there's no responsibility on Reuven. He knows both of you. He knows he borrowed from both of you, from the shutfa. So obviously it's not going to be, he has no responsibility towards it. And now,
I don't get how the other way. If he doesn't know that he owes Shimon, or you're saying he would maybe send Shimon as...
Sends Shimon, and Shimon says, listen, we have you borrowed money, here's your paper. You borrowed money from this corporation. I'm a shutaf in the corporation. Pay me. Continues Aruch HaShulchan with another 3 points. Number 1, even though the Reuven doesn't have to, let's say Reuven wasn't a pesheya, everything is good, Shimon has to go instead of him, Shimon can't tell the Reuven to bother the sar for the money. Like tell him, I'm going to be sending my friend, I'm going to be doing something to get the money back. Because then he's not gaining anything from it. He's going to just end up losing from it. That's one point he says. Then he says another very interesting thing. If Reuven has a specific benefit from the sar for the fact that he gave him the loan, because Reuven gave the benefit, gave the loan to the sar, and he lives by his town. So now, because the sar owes so much money to Reuven, he has certain benefits that are going on over there. He gets to save on taxes, he gets a discount on his taxes, he gets some extra benefits on the side. So the Aruch HaShulchan says, I think this is from the Rosh also, that you have to calculate how much this benefit is worth. And Reuven has to give half of the value of this benefit to Shimon. So let's say he saves $10,000 in taxes a year because he gave this loan. So he has to give $5,000 to Shimon. Because this is a result of this chayv. And this chayv is part of the shutfas. So this $10,000 benefit in taxes that you have every year is not because the sar likes you, it's because you gave our money to him. And therefore you profited $5,000, I should also profit $5,000 from it. And then he adds another point, which matches a little bit to what the Mishpat Shalom says in the name of the Hafla. The Aruch HaShulchan concludes the Sif by saying is, this whole discussion, when does the Shimon has to go, collect the Chayv, was a Pesheya, not a Pesheya, v'chulu, v'chulu, the whole discussion is only if Shimon is able to collect the Chayv. That means Shimon has the way of proving to the guy, or is able to talk to the guy, whatever it is, to get the Chayv. What if there's no way that Shimon could collect the chayv? Let's say the guy doesn't even know that's from the shutfas. The guy knows it's from Reuven. Shimon's going to come to him and say, you owe $1 million. The The guy's going to take his 2 guards and throw him as fast as he can say hello, and it's not going to work. He says if that's the case, that Shimon has no way of collecting it, so then Reuven has to do it, even if he wasn't a Pesheya, even if he's going to be scared of it, v'chulu v'chulu, he's still responsible to do it. Yeah, the second din of the Ramah is if Reuven was moichel chayvus of Shimon, and then there's a machlekes if it was bereshus, if it wasn't bereshus, when could he say amigu, when can he not say amigu? I don't have time to get into it now, but you just know that the yesod of it is that it's also to be moichel the shutfus, the chayvus of the shutfus, without the reshus of the other person. With that, we conclude for today.